when the Galactic Council found out why human diplomatic guards carry no weapons to meetings. Ambassador Vioktar of the Zintillian Confederation adjusted his ceremonial collar as he watched the human delegation approach the Grand Council chamber. The humans had only joined the Galactic Council 3 planetary cycles ago, and they still puzzled him greatly. Every other species brought armed guards to diplomatic meetings. The Creel brought their shock staff warriors. The Palaxians were accompanied by neural disruptor specialists. Even the peaceful Mondavi had their famed gravity manipulators. But humans? Their guards carried no weapons whatsoever. "Look at them," Vioktar whispered to his aide Gliss. "So confident, yet so vulnerable. Fools or geniuses? I still cannot decide." Gliss fluttered her sensory membranes. "Perhaps both, Ambassador. The reports from their world are concerning." The human diplomatic team consisted of Ambassador Elaine Powell, a short woman with curly auburn hair and a perpetual half-smile, flanked by 2 guards. One was a towering, dark-skinned man named Marcus Devlin with shoulders as wide as a cargo loader, and the other was a lithe, pale woman called Tanya Reeves, who moved with unsettling grace. No visible weapons, not even concealed ones, according to the security scanners. Ambassador Powell, Vioktar greeted, extending his primary manipulators in the traditional gesture of diplomatic welcome. "The Council is pleased by your punctual arrival." Powell smiled. "We humans value time almost as much as you Zintillians value proper introductions, Ambassador Vioktar." Yes, well, he couldn't help but glance at her guards. "Your security detail seems rather, shall we say, minimalist." Powell's smile widened. "Oh, Marcus and Tanya. They are all we need." The huge man, Marcus, gave a curt nod but remained silent. The woman, Tanya, smiled in a way that made Vioktar's exoskeleton feel suddenly too tight. "Fascinating," he replied, trying to mask his discomfort. "The council session begins in 12 minutes. The Creel ambassador has requested a private word with you beforehand." The Creel Powell's eyebrow raised. "Well, isn't that just peachy? Lead the way." As they walked through the grand corridor of the council headquarters on Nexus Station, Vioktar observed the human guards. They seemed to be constantly scanning the surroundings, noting every detail, every person they passed. Their eyes missed nothing. No visible communication devices, yet somehow they appeared to be in perfect sync. "Your guards," Vioktar ventured, "they seem quite attentive." Powell laughed. "That's one way to put it. Marcus spent 15 years in our special forces before joining the diplomatic corps. Tanya has a background that, well, let's just say it's classified at levels even I don't have access to. Yet they carry no weapons," Vioktar pressed. "The Creel ambassador, Dozak, has 6 armed guards at all times, each capable of destroying half this station. Quality over quantity," Ambassador Powell replied with that infuriating half-smile. They arrived at the antechamber where Ambassador Dozak waited. The Creel were massive reptilian beings with armored hides and temperaments to match. Dozak stood nearly 3 meters tall, surrounded by his guards who carried plasma pulse rifles that hummed with barely contained energy. "Human," Dozak rumbled, "your presence in the council displeases the Creel Imperium." Powell didn't even blink. "Good afternoon to you too, Ambassador Dozak. And lovely weather we are having in this climate-controlled space station, wouldn't you agree?" Vioktar nearly choked. No one spoke to the Creel with such casual disregard. Dozak's scales flushed an angry crimson. "Your species has been granted privileges beyond your worth. The trade routes through Sector 19 should have been awarded to the Creel." The council voted. "Democracy's funny that way," Powell said, examining her fingernails. "But democracy," Dozak spat the word like a curse. "A concept for the weak. The Creel take what they deserve." One of Dozak's guards stepped forward, towering over Powell. The security scanners should have prevented any threatening movements, but they remained silent. Vioktar realized with horror that the Creel must have hacked the system. Perhaps the Creel guard growled. The humans needed demonstration of true power. What happened next occurred so quickly that that Vroktar's compound eyes could barely process it. Marcus Devlin moved. One moment he was standing passively behind Powell, the next he had somehow redirected the Creel guard's momentum, using the alien's own weight against him. The guard, easily twice Marcus's mass, crashed into the floor with a sound like a cargo container being dropped from orbit. At the same instant, Tanya Reeves had somehow closed the distance to another Creel guard. Her hands moved in a blur, striking what appeared to be random points on the Creel's body. The massive alien froze in place, then collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. The remaining 4 guards raised their weapons, but found themselves suddenly hesitant. Powell hadn't moved an inch. "Gentlemen," she said calmly, "let's not make a diplomatic incident out of a simple conversation." Dozak's breathing had accelerated, his chest heaving with rage or perhaps fear. What kind of technology is this? Our scanners detected no weapons, no enhancements." Powell smiled. "No technology, Ambassador Dozak, just humans." Vroktar couldn't believe what he had witnessed. 2 unarmed humans had neutralized 2 elite Creel guards in less time than it took him to blink his tertiary eyes. Ambassador Powell Vroktar found his voice at last. "Perhaps we should proceed to the council chamber. The session will begin shortly." Of course, Powell nodded pleasantly. "Ambassador Dozak, I look forward to continuing our discussion in a more formal setting." As they walked away, leaving the stunned Creel delegation behind, Vroktar couldn't contain his curiosity any longer. "How did your guards do that? Some form of hidden technology? Psionic abilities your species has concealed?" Powell chuckled. "Nothing so exotic, Ambassador. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We have gotten rather good at it. Marcus is trained in several martial arts, combat techniques that use an opponent's strength against them. Tanya knows how to temporarily disable nerve clusters in most known species. Without weapons, Vroktar marveled." Ambassador Powell said, her voice suddenly serious. "In human history, we have learned that the most dangerous weapon in any room is the human mind. Everything else is just an accessory." As they entered the Grand Council chamber, Vroktar noticed that the other ambassadors gave the human delegation a wider berth than before. News traveled fast on Nexus Station. The first session of what would become known as the Nexus Accords was about to begin, and Vroktar had a feeling that the galaxy's perception of humans had just fundamentally changed. He wondered what other surprises these weaponless guards might reveal before the day was done. 3 days into the Nexus Accords summit, Vroktar found himself increasingly fascinated by the human delegation. The incident with the Creel had spread throughout the diplomatic corps like wildfire, growing more elaborate with each retelling. By the 3rd day, rumors claimed that the human guards had single-handedly defeated the entire Creel security detail, while Ambassador Powell continued casual conversation while sipping her coffee beverage. The truth was impressive enough without embellishment, but Vroktar noticed the humans did nothing to correct these exaggerations. In fact, they seemed amused by them. "Your species enjoys cultivating an air of mystery," Vroktar observed as he and Powell shared a meal in the station's diplomatic lounge. Powell spread a substance called butter on something humans called bread, odd customs, but Vroktar had seen stranger. "Mystery has its uses in diplomacy, wouldn't you agree?" Perhaps, he conceded. "Though I wonder if your guards' capabilities are similarly exaggerated." Powell took a bite of her food, chewing thoughtfully. "You know what's interesting about humans, Ambassador? We are pack predators who evolved to look harmless. Most predator species evolved obvious weapons, fangs, claws, venom. Humans? We look soft, vulnerable. It served us well." Across the lounge, Marcus Devlin stood casually by the entrance, hands clasped in front of him. He looked relaxed to the untrained eye, but Vroktar had been watching long enough to notice how the human's gaze continuously swept the room, cataloging threats, planning movements. "You're Marcus." Vroktar nodded in the guard's direction. "He never truly relaxes, does he?" "Occupational habit," Powell replied. Before diplomatic service, Marcus was what we call a doorman at high-security venues on Earth. His job was to prevent trouble before it started and handle it quietly if it did. "And the female, Tanya?" Powell's expression became unreadable. Tanya has a more specialized background. Let's just say she's intimately familiar with 16 ways to incapacitate most sentient species using nothing but her hands. Tar's primary heart skipped a beat. You humans are quite terrifying, you know, says the species with natural armor and acid glands. Powell laughed. Their conversation was interrupted when Ambassador Xilk of the Palaxian hierarchy approached their table. The Palaxians resembled iridescent insectoids, with multiple limbs and compound eyes that reflected light in hypnotic patterns. They were known for their technological prowess and somewhat flexible ethical standards. Ambassador Powell, Xilk's translator unit, converted the clicks and chirps into standard Galactic. A pleasure to witness your continued survival after the Creel encounter. Powell smiled. Ambassador Xilk, please join us. The Palaxian settled onto a specially designed chair. I must admit, your species continues to surprise the Council. First, your rapid technological advancement, then your unusual diplomatic methods, and now these guards of yours. We are just full of surprises, Powell said, her tone light but her eyes watchful. Silk's mandibles twitched in what Tar recognized as amusement. Indeed. The proposal your delegation submitted regarding the disputed territories in the Cygnus Arm is equally surprising. The Palaxian hierarchy wonders what other surprises might be revealed in private discussion. Powell's expression didn't change, but Tar noticed Tanya Reeves had silently materialized just within earshot of their table. He hadn't even seen her move from her previous position. I'm always open to discussion, Ambassador Xilk, Powell replied. Excellent. Perhaps you would honor me by visiting my private quarters this evening? We Palaxians prefer to conduct meaningful negotiations away from excessive observation. Tar felt his exoskeleton tighten with tension. The Palaxians were notorious for using unorthodox methods to gain advantage in negotiations, including subtle neural disruptors that affected judgment and memory. Their private quarters were rumored to be filled with such devices, undetectable by standard security scans. I'd be delighted, Powell said, surprising Tar. Shall we say 20 station time? Perfect Xilk rose fluidly. Come alone, of course. My security team is uncomfortable around your guards after recent events. After Xilk departed, Tar leaned forward urgently. Ambassador Powell, you cannot seriously intend to enter a Palaxian's private quarters without protection. Their neural manipulation technology is legendary. Powell dabbed her lips with a napkin. Who said I'd be without protection? But the Palaxian requested you come alone. And I will appear to be alone. Powell smiled. Marcus and Tanya won't be visible, but trust me, they will be there. Tar blinked in confusion. The station's security systems will detect them if they attempt to follow you. Powell's smile widened. No, they won't. That evening, Tar found himself unable to focus on the preparatory documents for the next day's session. His mind kept returning to the human ambassador's foolhardy meeting with the Palaxian. Against his better judgment, he made his way to the residential section of the station where the Palaxian delegation was quartered. As he rounded the corner, he nearly collided with Tanya Reeves, who appeared silently from a service corridor that Tar hadn't even known existed. Ambassador Tar, she greeted him calmly, as if encountering him in a restricted area at night was perfectly normal. Out for an evening stroll. I was concerned about Ambassador Powell, he admitted. Tanya's expression gave away nothing. Ambassador Powell is currently concluding her meeting with Ambassador Xilk. It's been quite productive. But how did you? The Palaxian requested she come alone. Tanya's lips curved in a slight smile. Ambassador Xilk only saw Ambassador Powell enter his quarters. Perception and reality don't always align. Where is Marcus? Tar asked, looking around. Exactly where he needs to be, Tanya replied cryptically. Before Tar could question her further, his communication device chirped. It was an automated alert from the Council's security system, notifying all ambassadors of an attempted breach of the station's central database originating from the Palaxian quarters. What have you done? Tar gasped. Tanya looked genuinely surprised. Nothing yet. The door to Ambassador Silk's quarters slid open, and Powell emerged, looking completely composed. Behind her, Vahrok Tiar could see Ambassador Xilk surrounded by station security officers. Perfect timing, Vahrok Tiar Powell greeted him cheerfully. "You are just in time to witness a significant development in our negotiations." Ambassador Xilk's compound eyes reflected chaotic patterns of distress. "This is outrageous." The human planted evidence. There was no attempted breach. The security chief, a stoic Mondavi, gestured to his data pad. "The logs are clear, Ambassador Xilk. While meeting with the human ambassador, someone used your personal access codes to attempt entry into restricted council archives regarding Earth's defense capabilities." Powell looked appropriately shocked. "Ambassador Silk, I'm disappointed. And here I thought we were having such a productive conversation about mutual cooperation." Vahrok Tiar stared at Powell, then at Tanya, then back at the scene unfolding in the Palaxian's quarters. He noticed Marcus Devlin was now somehow standing among the security team, though Vahrok Tiar hadn't seen him arrive. "How?" Vahrok Tiar whispered to Tanya. "Human diplomatic guards are trained in more than just physical protection," she replied quietly. "Marcus has certain skills with electronic systems. I have other specialties. Between us, we ensure our ambassador's safety in all domains, physical, digital, and political." As the Palaxian was escorted away, protesting his innocence, Powell joined Vahrok Tiar and Tanya in the corridor. "Ambassador," she said pleasantly to Vahrok Tiar, "you look troubled." "Did you? Did your guards frame the Palaxian?" he asked, voice barely audible. Powell's expression became serious. The Palaxian quarters were filled with illegal neural disruptors, configured to influence anyone in the room to reveal classified information. If Ambassador Xilk happened to attempt accessing restricted files while those disruptors were active, well, consequences follow actions. "But your guards don't carry weapons," Vahrok Tiar said, trying to reconcile what he knew with what he suspected. "Traditional weapons? No." Powell placed a friendly hand on his arm. "But as I told you before, the human mind is the most dangerous weapon. And my guards are very, very well equipped in that department." As they walked back toward the diplomatic quarters, Vahrok Tiar realized that the humans had shown the council something far more frightening than mere physical prowess. Their guards didn't need weapons because they weaponized everything around them: information, systems, perception, and even the actions of their adversaries. And the most terrifying part? They did it all with a smile. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with tension. News of Ambassador Xilk's detention had spread throughout the station, creating ripples of unease among the diplomatic corps. The Palaxian hierarchy had sent a replacement ambassador, but the damage was done. No one could look at the human delegation the same way again. Vahrok Tiar found himself in the unenviable position of mediator. As representative of the Zintilian Confederation, traditionally neutral in galactic politics, it fell to him to maintain order during what promised to be a contentious session. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Gorza of the Tulaki Dominion," Vahrok Tiar announced, gesturing to the large, gelatinous being that hovered at the podium. Ambassador Gorza's translucent body pulsed with bioluminescent lights as he spoke. "The Tulaki Dominion formally requests an investigation into human diplomatic practices. 2 incidents in less than a week suggest a pattern of provocative behavior incompatible with council membership." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Creel delegation pounded their appendages on their consoles in support. Ambassador Powell, Vahrok Tiar, turned to the human delegation. "How do you respond to these concerns?" Powell stood, her posture relaxed yet somehow commanding. Marcus and Tanya flanked her as always, silent and watchful. The incidents in question were not instigated by Earth's delegation, Powell stated calmly. In the first case, Creel guards threatened physical violence in a designated neutral zone. In the second, Palaxian representatives attempted unauthorized access to restricted council archives. In both cases, my security detail responded appropriately to clear violations of council protocol. Responded with methods that circumvent our security systems, Ambassador Gorza countered, his body flushing a deep orange. methods that have not been disclosed to the Council as required by Treaty Section 5, Paragraph 12. Powell smiled that infuriating half-smile that Vir-Oktar had come to recognize as a warning sign. Ambassador Gorza, with respect, Earth has fully disclosed all technological capabilities as required. My guards carry no technology that violates Council regulations. Then explain, Gorza demanded, how they managed to enter Ambassador Silk's quarters undetected by station security. I never said they entered his quarters, Powell replied smoothly. A confused silence fell over the chamber. But the security breach, Gorza's translucent form rippled with confusion, was detected and reported by station security. Powell finished for him. My guards simply ensured I was protected during a private meeting that, as it turns out, involved illegal neural disruptors and attempted data theft. Vir-Oktar watched the human guards as Powell spoke. They remained impassive, yet somehow managed to look simultaneously alert and bored. It was an impressive feat of control. Ambassador Dozak of the Creel suddenly rose from his seat, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber floor. The human lies. My guards report that her protectors possess abilities beyond normal physical parameters. They move with impossible speed and precision. They must be using concealed enhancement technology. Powell turned to face the Creel, her expression pleasant. Ambassador Dozak, your guards attacked a diplomatic representative on neutral ground. That my security detail prevented this without causing permanent harm to your people should be cause for gratitude, not suspicion. We demand inspection. Dozak roared. A full medical and technological scan of these human guards. The chamber erupted in voices, most supporting the Creel's demand. Vir-Oktar raised his appendages for silence, which eventually settled over the room. Ambassador Powell, he said carefully, while unusual, the request is not without precedent. Would you consent to having your guards undergo a council-supervised examination to put these concerns to rest? Powell conferred briefly with Marcus and Tanya, then nodded. We have nothing to hide. However, we request that representatives from all major council species be present during the examination to ensure fairness. Agreed, Vir-Oktar said, relieved that a diplomatic crisis might be averted. The examination will take place in the medical bay at 15 station time. As the council session adjourned, Vir-Oktar approached Powell privately. A wise decision, Ambassador. This should resolve the mounting tensions. Powell glanced at her guards, who had moved to a respectful distance but remained within sight. Perhaps. Though I suspect it may create more questions than answers. What do you mean? The Council fears what it doesn't understand, Powell said. And humans have been misunderstood for most of our history. It's almost our natural state. At 15 precisely, a curious assembly gathered in the station's advanced medical facility. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Renzi, herself a human who had been working with the Council for decades before Earth's official membership, would oversee the proceedings. Representatives from 12 major species formed a semicircle around 2 examination platforms where Marcus and Tanya now stood, looking remarkably unconcerned. We will begin with standard biological scans, Dr. Renzi announced, activating the medical sensors. These will detect any technological enhancements, genetic modifications, or foreign substances that might explain enhanced physical capabilities. The scans hummed to life, bathing the 2 guards in shifting patterns of light. Holographic displays materialized above each platform, showing detailed anatomical information. Dr. Renzi studied the readings, her expression professional. Initial scans show standard human biology. There are no implants. No genetic modifications beyond what falls within natural human variation. Ambassador Dozak snorted in disbelief. Impossible. Scan again with higher sensitivity. The scanners are already at maximum sensitivity, Dr. Renzi replied patiently. I can confirm that these humans have no technological or biological enhancements that would explain their performance against your guards, Ambassador Dozak. Then explain how they move with such speed and precision, Dozak demanded. Dr. Renzi looked to Powell, who nodded permission. Training. Dr. Renzi said simply. Intensive, specialized training that begins in early adulthood and continues throughout their careers. No species can achieve such results through training alone, Ambassador Gorza objected. Dr. Renzi expanded one of the holographic displays, highlighting the human's muscular and nervous systems. Humans have several biological advantages that make them uniquely suited to certain types of combat and stealth operations. Their muscle fiber composition allows for both explosive power and fine motor control. Their proprioception awareness of body position can be honed to exceptional levels. But the speed, Dozak insisted. My guards are twice their mass with reaction times evolved for predatory hunting. Marcus spoke for the first time since the examination began. His deep voice carried effortlessly across the room. Mass is often a disadvantage in close-quarters combat. As for reaction time, humans don't react. We anticipate. The room fell silent. Explain, Vioktar requested. Tanya glanced at Powell, who nodded again. Most species train to react to an attack once it begins, Tanya said. Humans train to read micro-expressions, body language, muscle tension, eye movement, breathing patterns. We know you are going to attack before you do. Preposterous, Dozak growled. Your left secondary heart rate increases when you are preparing to strike, Tanya said to him calmly. Your scales flush slightly at the base of your neck. Your weight shifts to your rear leg approximately 0.8 seconds before you lunge. These tells are quite obvious once you know what to look for. Dozak's expression of shock confirmed her accuracy. Dr. Renzi expanded another display. What Guard Reeves is describing is pattern recognition, a cognitive skill at which humans excel. Combined with their neuroplasticity, the ability to rewire neural pathways through repetitive training, it allows for the development of what appear to be superhuman abilities to other species. Ambassador Gorza's body had paled to a translucent white. Are you suggesting that all humans possess these capabilities? No, Powell interjected. Like any species, humans vary widely in natural abilities and potential. Marcus and Tanya represent individuals who demonstrated exceptional aptitude and then underwent years of specialized training. Training in what, precisely? Vroktar asked. Everything, Marcus answered. Combat techniques from dozens of Earth cultures, psychology, kinesiology, threat assessment, environmental awareness. We study how bodies work, how minds work, and how to use that knowledge for protection. Without weapons, Vroktar marveled. With anything, Tanya corrected. Or nothing. A weapon is just a tool. The mind behind it is what matters. As the examination concluded, the council representatives filed out in unsettled silence. Only Vroktar remained behind with the human delegation. You have created more fear today, not less, he observed. Powell nodded. Perhaps. But fear based on truth is preferable to fear based on misconception. The truth being that human guards are dangerous because they are human, not because of technology we could counter or restrict, Vroktar said. Precisely. Powell glanced at her guards, who had resumed their watchful positions. The council wanted to know why human diplomatic guards carry no weapons. Now they do. Because they are the weapons, Vroktar said quietly. Powell's expression turned suddenly serious. No, Ambassador. Because they don't need weapons to protect me. There's a difference. As Vroktar watched the human delegation depart, he couldn't help but wonder if the distinction Powell made was meaningful, or if it was the most frightening revelation of all. The final day of the Nexus Accord summit dawned with an atmosphere of wary respect toward the human delegation. News of the medical examination had spread throughout the station, growing with each retelling until some versions claimed the human guards could read minds and move faster than light. Vroktar found these exaggerations frustrating but unsurprising. Fear often expressed itself through hyperbole. What troubled him more was the growing coalition of species who now viewed humans as a potential threat rather than a valuable addition to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Powell, he said, as they prepared to enter the final session, I must warn you that several delegations have been meeting privately. They are concerned about the implications of yesterday's revelations. Powell adjusted her formal attire, a blue suit that matched Earth's flag colors. Politics as usual, Ambassador Vroktar. The new species always face skepticism. This goes beyond skepticism, he insisted. some are suggesting that humans represent an unpredictable element in galactic affairs, that your species' capabilities make you dangerous. Marcus and Tanya exchanged a glance that Vioroktar couldn't interpret. Powell merely smiled. History is filled with those who feared what they didn't understand, she said. We have faced similar reactions before, both on Earth and beyond. We will weather this storm too. Vioroktar admired her confidence but wondered if it was misplaced. He had come to respect humans during these diplomatic sessions, but also to recognize that other species' concerns weren't entirely unfounded. The Grand Council chamber was filled to capacity as Vioroktar called the final session to order. Representatives from all 97 member species were present, an unusual occurrence that highlighted the significance of the moment. Before we proceed to the ratification of the Nexus Accords, Vioroktar announced, Ambassador Creel of the Jindari Collective has requested the floor to address a matter of council security. Powell's expression remained neutral, but Vioroktar noticed her guards shift subtly, repositioning themselves for optimal coverage of the room. They hadn't moved much, just a slight adjustment of stance, a minimal change in position, but it was enough to give them clear sightlines to every entrance and every delegation. Ambassador Creel floated to the central podium, his vapor-like form condensing into a roughly humanoid shape for formal address. The Jindari were among the oldest council members, respected for their wisdom and fairness. Esteemed colleagues, Creel's melodic voice resonated through the chamber. Recent events have raised profound questions about the nature of humanity and their place among galactic civilizations. A ripple of agreement passed through the assembly. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that, while not technically in violation of council regulations, nonetheless challenge our fundamental assumptions about security and diplomatic protocol. Vioroktar watched Powell carefully. She maintained a polite, attentive expression, giving away nothing. For millennia. Creel continued, the council has operated on principles of transparency and balance. We declare our capabilities openly. We regulate weapons and technology that could threaten the stability of our alliance. Yet now we face a species whose greatest weapons cannot be scanned, cannot be regulated. It cannot be left at the door. The chamber had grown completely silent, every representative focused intently on Creel's words. I speak of the weapon that is the human mind, coupled with their unique biology and cultural development. It's a combination that, as we have witnessed, makes them formidable even when seemingly unarmed. The Creel paused, his form shimmering slightly. The question before us is not whether humans have violated our protocols, they have not. The question is whether our protocols are adequate to address the unique challenges presented by human inclusion in galactic affairs. Ambassador Dozak of the Creel rose without being recognized. The answer is clear. The humans must be restricted. Special protocols must be established. Murmurs of both agreement and objection filled the chamber. Vioroktar was about to call for order when Powell stood, silencing the room with her unexpected movement. The council recognizes Ambassador Powell of Earth, Vioroktar said quickly. Powell smiled, that unsettling half-smile as she took the podium. Marcus and Tanya remained at their positions, seemingly relaxed yet alert to every movement in the room. Ambassadors, friends, colleagues, Powell began, her voice warm but carrying an undercurrent of steel. I understand your concerns. Truly I do. Humanity is new to this council. Our ways seem strange to you, perhaps even threatening. She paused, looking around the chamber, making eye contact with key representatives. But I would ask you to consider a simple truth. Every species here evolved under different conditions, developing different strengths and abilities. The Creel possess natural armor and immense strength. The Palaxians have unparalleled technological aptitude. The Mondavi can manipulate gravitational fields with their minds. The Jindari exist in multiple states simultaneously. Powell spread her hands in a gesture of openness. Humans, we are soft-skinned mammals from a high-gravity world with thousands of predator species. We don't have claws or armor or venom. What we have is adaptability, problem-solving, pattern recognition, and yes, when necessary, the ability to fight with whatever tools are available, including none at all. She smiled genuinely now, her eyes crinkling at the corners. But that's not what makes us unique in this council. What makes us unique is our diversity. On Earth, we don't have a unified culture or government like many of your worlds. We have thousands of cultures, languages, perspectives. We argue, we compete, we cooperate, we compromise. And what does this have to do with the security concerns raised? Creel asked, though his tone was curious rather than confrontational. Everything, Powell replied. Because that diversity, that constant clash of ideas and approaches, has taught us something crucial about security and diplomacy. She gestured to Marcus and Tanya. My guards carry no weapons not because human hands are weapons themselves, though they can be, but because true security doesn't come from visible displays of force. It comes from understanding, anticipation, and de-escalation. Powell's voice grew more passionate. For most of our history, humans fought each other. We became very, very good at it. But we also learned, through painful experience, that lasting peace never comes through superior firepower alone. It comes through communication, respect, and finding common ground. The chamber had grown utterly still, every representative captivated by Powell's words. Yes, my guards could disable most threats without conventional weapons. But their primary function isn't to fight. It's to ensure fighting never becomes necessary. They read body language. They assess intentions. They create an environment where violence becomes the least attractive option for potential aggressors. Powell looked directly at Ambassador Dozek. When your guards moved to threaten me, Ambassador, mine didn't immediately counterattack. They neutralized the immediate threat with minimal force, preventing escalation. They could have done much worse, but that would have violated everything we believe about diplomatic relations. She turned to face the entire assembly. Humans don't carry